Okay. Okay, we're live.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the June 1st, my goodness, Administrative Committee meeting. Jenny, could you please call roll?
Vice Mayor DeRosa.
Here.
Ms. Fox.
Here.
Ms. Saludo.
Here.
Great. Thank you very much. Looks like we have 2 minutes to approve. If we could, please, could I get a motion to approve the April 6th Admin Committee meeting minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Jenny, could you please call roll?
Ms. Saludo.
Yes.
Ms. Fox.
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa.
Yes. And could I get how about I will move to approve the May 4th Administrative Committee meeting. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Jenny, if you please call roll.
Ms. Saludo.
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa.
Yes.
Ms. Fox.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. We have 2 updates this evening. Jennifer, I believe you are going to handle both of those. We have a human resources update and a benefits update. Is that correct? Wonderful. Okay, with that, I'll hand it off to you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share the first of my presentations. Can you see that screen? It says Human Resources, June 1st, 2021.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so I wanted to share a little bit of information with you in regards to some human resources updates. So the first screen that you're looking at is our permanent workforce turnover for 2017 to current. So this actually went through the very end of May. And you can see that our turnover rate right now for the year is 9.1%, which is up just a little bit from the years past, partly because this is a mid-year update and we're only looking at the first 5 months of the year. And then I have a little bit more information on the next screen that I will share with you as well. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the reasons for that turnover and what classification they fall into, whether it be retirements, resignations, or terminations. Oop. So this next screen shows our monthly vacancies. Oh my goodness, every button moves something differently. I'm sorry. The monthly vacancies citywide for the last 3.5 years, and we have a goal of having that be 15% or less. And you can see in the 2020 segment where the red line is pointing at, this is the start of the COVID impact. Once COVID moved through the beginning part of last year, we went into a hiring freeze. And so anytime there was any kind of a turnover, we didn't backfill those positions. So those numbers started to increase. And then we did start backfilling positions in the fall of 2020 and have continued to backfill those, but you could see the numbers went up. So we're basically just getting caught up from some of the effects of COVID. One of the other things that I forgot to mention on the previous slide in regards to the turnover is, according to the US Department of Labor and Statistics, a turnover rate of 12 to 15% is average. So I'll go back to the slides just so you can see that. So with ours at being 9.1, we're still below average, and we will see how the rest of this year continues. The next slide.
On that last slide,
Mm-hmm.
That green line, I forgot to mention this to you, that should be shifted down to where the 15 line is. We didn't pull that green line down so they could see where the whole line was. That's my fault. I should have pointed that out to you guys today. So where that is. Okay,
so just imagine where you see the line 15 on that green bar that Homer's pointing out right here, yeah. Should be pulled down to 15.
Yeah.
All right, so our next slide.
Why is the goal 15?
That's just a goal that we've determined that we wanted to stay under because of how we have trended for the last couple of years. So it's just something that we picked for the organization of, hey, we'd like to stay at this level or below.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so this is our workers' compensation slide. This is our self-insured versus the state program. And in 2020, we really focused on COVID and all of the effects that went into keeping the work environment safe. We had very few issues last year, in part because of the workforce being in a very different dynamic than it has been in years past. We are still significantly lower than if we had stayed with the state program. Being self-funded has still continued to show us profitable results year after year. I shouldn't say profitable, but less than what we would be paying if we were with the state. And so we have had one large claim in 2021 that is still being adjudicated because we're obviously only partway through the year. But we have good news that continues when you look at our trends from the time we went self-insured. This next slide is just to show some of the legal issue updates, some of the open claims we still have going on in risk management. We have 2 of our workers' comp claims at the Industrial Commission hearing. And then you can see for 2019 and 2020 what our costs have been for injuries and for injury leave. And then we have the one claim that happened in January of 2021 that is still being adjudicated. So we don't have any medical costs on that one yet.
Jennifer,
Yes.
can I just ask you, in those costs, do you calculate what it cost in legal fees or no? Or is it just in medical and workers' comp costs?
This right here is medical and workers' comp.
Okay.
We do calculate it out for legal. I mean, part of that is our coverage, but I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Okay.
Jennifer, you use the TPS for your,
We do.
okay, who do you use?
Homer, can you help me out with this one? Is it Korma?
Siegel?
Is it Siegel? Okay.
Oh, Siegel, okay.
Siegel, and the name has changed several times.
Sorry, Siegel does our unemployment stuff. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay, I was just curious.
I
So
know
do they help provide you with some of the data that you get?
they do, yes.
Okay, okay.
And I can follow back up with you and tell you the exact name. It was, oh my goodness. I talked to Ron about this just last week, but they have literally changed names every year for the past 3 years as one company has absorbed another company. So it's kind of been a badminton back and forth, and I just cannot remember who it is right now.
And do you, I don't know if public sector organizations, agencies were eligible for it, but did you guys receive a BWC refund?
We did not because we're self-insured.
That's what I
However,
thought.
Ron did calculate the cost of what those reimbursements were. And when you look at the cost of our self-insured claims, it was still less than what the premium would have cost if we were fully funded and having received those reimbursements. So we're still in a better position staying self-funded.
And I think you will be long-term anyway, because you know, with those reimbursements, the way that they're calculating them out, you actually end up kind of getting the short end of the stick in the out years.
Yes.
Go back one more slide, Jennifer. So that blue line, those 2 spikes that go downward is when the state actually did refunds.
Oh, I got you. There should be one in there for 2020.
Yeah, I don't know if Ron has that data yet.
Yeah, they may not, because it was, I mean, they did 2 rounds of refunds last year.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, even with the refunds, our line is the green line.
Yep, I got you.
Yeah.
So we're still doing well.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then back to this one. This is our 2020 injury accidents. So you can see with this pie graph, you can see what percentage our injury accidents have been. And then on the right-hand side in the box, it tells you what area the injuries happened in and how many people that was had affected. And then just for future reference, as of the beginning of the year, streets and utilities and park operations have combined to be called public service. So when you see this updated again, we will combine that area that says streets and utility and park operations. It will be just called public service. Then I wanted to jump over and talk a little bit about our talent development. So what you can see in front of you is what our fall of 2020 and winter, I guess winter/spring campaigns have been. And you can see the number of courses that our employees registered for. These are a combination of required classes and self-elected classes. The total compliance that's overdue at the time of pulling this data is 7. And this system has a really excellent way of helping us keep track of those who need to catch up on things that they're overdue or send reminders to supervisors and individual employees. We also have 2 employees we wanted to highlight who have done some very significant professional development. Jane Holmes in our facilities and fleet management area has personally registered and completed 117 courses, which is fantastic. And then Diane J. Arman, who is in courts and records, has completed 37. So we're very proud of all the individuals who self-register for all the professional development, which there is a lot in Cornerstone. So we wanted to point out that this is a new area that was approved in our budget at the end of 2019 for 2020 use. So in the last year and a half, we have gotten a lot of really good use out of this, and employees are starting to embrace using it.
Jennifer,
Yes.
this is great. I love professional development. I have a couple of questions. So do you tie this in any way to performance management? Like, is there an area where they can say, you know, I want to work on this part of my professional development, and then they can take a look back and say, yeah, I completed all this stuff I wanted to complete, and that ties to their overall performance management process?
The short answer is yes, but we're still developing that. So
Okay.
one of the things that Cornerstone can do, all of that is tracked in Cornerstone, and supervisors can actually assign particular professional development to an individual. We're working on tying that with annual evaluations and tying these 2 together. So we're hoping to be doing that in early 2022.
Yeah,
So
that's really fantastic. I think that's so very key, and that's definitely the direction in which a lot of human capital best practices are saying that we should go, right?
Yes.
The other question is, or do you plan to try to use this to help you put together some career pathing so that folks know, like, here's the position I'm in today, here's the position I want to get to, but how do I get there? Like, what are some of the professional developments or trainings I need to take so that I can get from my current career step to my next career step?
The answer to that was also yes. In fact, on the next slide, we've got a couple of different professional development areas that I wanted to talk about. So we have our seasonal hiring campaign, which is any seasonal that starts with the city has a prescribed course campaign that they have to review within 30, 60, or 90 days of their hiring. And most of that is all compliance training, but then they have access to all of the professional development courses as well. So the DCRC has a program called FIT. You've probably heard of it, but it stands for Fostering Internal Talent. And there are 19 people who are currently involved in that. So that's just additional professional development. And there's over 199 courses in there for people to take part in. And then also we just wanted to point out our 2 seasonals who both happen to be in the forestry area of all of the self-development that they're doing. And then on the next slide, we have a couple, there's this slide and then the one right after this, but this first one is our Frontline Supervisor all in all the time certification program. So this is a self-paced program that anybody who's interested in furthering their leadership and management skills and abilities can participate in. We currently have 2 scheduled cohorts, and they do 15 hours of various training, which you can see it's relatively small, but on the right hand side you can see the course curriculum and all the classes that they have access to. So I think that answers part of your question, Christina. And then the next slide we have is a course called Everyday Leaders. And so we have had 2 cohorts who have gone through this training, and we have one that's about to launch this fall. And this is for people who just want to have an increase in their leadership and management in the current role that they're in and just really expand their knowledge and horizons. So at the end of September last year, our first cohort graduated, and then our most recent cohort just graduated at the end of April. And you can see there were 18 employees in the first and 16 employees in the second. And this is a 3-year program that employees go through. and really work on developing the areas that this program outlines. So yes, I think all of that ties together, and these are completely self-selected, and they are used for the annual evaluations at the end of the year if there's an employee who is looking for new ways to develop. So these are tracks built into partly Cornerstone and partly just the talent development program in general.
That's great. And is part of the idea here that you're really sort of driving a pipeline of talent so that you've got talent to tap into for succession planning and internal promotions and things of that nature? And will you be tracking that over time now that you're beginning to implement this system?
Yes, in fact, it's already being tracked now, which is really nice. So all of this does get assigned to the individual when it's completed. They actually have record and they can see precisely what they have done. So in this last year and a half, we have enough data to see what every individual has done. And with 2020 being the year of COVID, a lot of the policies and procedures that we put into place, we ran through Cornerstone so that we could actually see employees were acknowledging that information, which is just another benefit of the system as well. So anything an employee has done through the Cornerstone management system, we actually can see and track.
Yeah, I love that.
We do too. That's wonderful.
Jennifer, where is all of this located? Since council doesn't really get to see much of this, where do you find all of the information that employees goes to look for this?
All of it right now is on DubNet. So if you go to our intranet and you just type in Everyday Leaders or Frontline Leaders, the last two programs I talked about, there are pages, a page for each of those dedicated to what the course curriculum is, what the requirements are, and just an overview of what happens in the course, along with testimonials from these 33 odd people who have completed the course.
Okay. And for those who want to take courses outside of Cornerstone or anything like this, does the city reimburse for, I know we have continuing education, but let's say someone wants to take college courses. Do we, I'm sure we do. Do we
Sure,
pay?
we have a tuition reimbursement program. So depending on if it falls into the guidelines of what we reimburse for, which we tend to be very liberal in that, we like to tie it back to the job that somebody's in. But again, we're very liberal in how we look at those courses. So they do have access through tuition reimbursement outside of any other leadership and management training available, which there's more than just what they can find in Cornerstone.
Okay, thanks.
I think that was my last screen in that presentation, so I will stop sharing that.
Hey, Jennifer, before we move on then, I guess to follow on both Christina and Jane's questions then, it would be very interesting to see a statistic about the folks that took part of tuition reimbursement over time. I think that you're sharing some numbers, that would be a good one. And I think it would also, and I had written this down before we had our discussion tonight, do we track when it's time for a promotion, the percent of promotions that come internal versus external hires? Do we have that statistic?
Off the top of my head, no, but we do track it and I can pull that information.
I think that would be very interesting. And this ties back to Christina's point. I know this is early in the process, but the goal, of course, is to help both the employee and the city, right? Create and grow and achieve talent and leadership. So I think tracking that over time would be wonderful. We had so many opens and we were able to do an internal promotion for this percentage of, and then over time, I'm sure that you'll be able to set goals. Maybe you have them now, but as this program goes out, I think that would be a wonderful thing for council to see too.
Good suggestion. We can absolutely work on that because there's so much being developed as we talk more about succession planning and really get and dive into Cornerstone and its capabilities, and helping employees understand the breadth of that system is a pretty monumental task in and of itself, just because it's so new and we're not used to doing our training. So we're really looking forward to the next 2, 3, 5 years of just diving in head first and finding those opportunities and sharing them with all employees.
I think Kathy makes a really good point. So does Christina, when it comes to the job that you're doing in building leadership and developing our people is wonderful. And we can see our employees grow in their leadership skills and their supervisory skills and all their professional expertise. But what worries me is that because we're a small community, sometimes it's hard to take these folks and find how to a position to elevate them to, because there may be only one director of a particular department, and that director may just stay for a very long time. And so what happens is we develop leaders underneath these directors, and then we lose all of this talent to another city or another municipality or another business or whatever. And I find that to be frustrating in many ways. It's rewarding to know they find another job. But I think along with that is when you do teach them and help them get to a certain level, how do you keep them? How do you make sure that there's a space for them so that they can utilize those skills here where they learn them, where, you know, that we don't, I know we have a low turnover, but to me, in the last 3 years, I've noticed some people who have developed to a point that they had nowhere to go, so they left. And that seems to me like we do all the work, but then we give away the reward. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm sure every corporation struggles with it, but I do wonder if there isn't a better way.
Well, I think that's one of the things that Dana prides himself on as well, is because we offer such a wonderful variety of things that people can do to develop in place. Sometimes that means we do lose the good ones, and we have on occasion seen some of those people come back in different roles. There's an individual in finance who started out, I know her first name is Megan, I'm forgetting her last name, but she started out as an intern here, left, got a little bit more experience, and then just recently was hired in the finance department. And if I put more thought into it, I could think of a few other individuals like that. But we think about a Kyle Kreidler or now a Rachel Ray who are leaving. And, you know, you never know what the future holds. And we know that we put really good investment in those individuals. So we keep a keen eye on that as well, because no organization wants to lose their key talent. But I think it does speak to how wonderful it is, all of the variety of things that the city offers, that we truly can get our people to take a role that might not be available here, but can benefit other local governments in the area, which is what people have been leaving for. And then hoping, you know, it comes full circle at some point in the future, or at least continues to develop those relationships with other cities, which also can be equally important to the business we do here. So
no, I don't disagree at all. I don't at all. I do think though that sometimes because of our tiering of and the names that we have of each of the positions, sometimes I'm wondering if the structure doesn't allow for more elevation of the person that gets to a place that maybe they can't be the director, but they don't want to stay as, say, a senior planner. Maybe there's ways to lateral out so that you can keep this great talent and not lose them. And even though it is very rewarding to know that we're teaching people to be great, it's even more rewarding to teach them and keep them. So yeah, but I know that this is a human resource problem all over, so it's not just ours.
And we do also try to work on having good job families within the organization so that there is room to grow within your particular department, and even finding ways for people to branch out in other segments of the city. And that also has happened a few times. I think Sarah O'Malley is probably the most recent one who's a really great example of that. All the years that she spent as a part-time person in events, and then was able to transfer into economic development. So we can definitely provide future statistics, but we have a couple really good stories as well. But you're right, it's something that it's always on the forefront of our mind as well. So we're right there with you.
Yeah, Kendall Kellogg's going to be another example of somebody who was in one area that is now moving to another area, so she can expand her horizons too.
Excellent point. Well, that was the first part of my update, so I'll turn it back over to you, Kathy.
Any other questions before we move on, or comments? We appreciate it. I mean, it is impressive, the numbers and what you guys have been able to do in a short period of time. And I know your ambitions are even greater. So we look forward to that and appreciate the updates. So now benefits. Oh boy, here we go.
Okay, can you see the benefit update slide now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, so what we're going to start with is what the total per employee per year cost has been for the last several years. And we have briefed this slide over the last few years, and we do not currently have what our projections are for 2022. We typically do renewal with our third-party administrator, which is United Healthcare, but that typically doesn't happen until the end of the summer, beginning of August timeframe. But you can see what percentage of increases we've had with our per employee per cost year for the last several years. So from 2014 to 2021, we've seen about a $7,300 increase in those costs.
Could you remind us how that compares to the industry?
It's actually very good. We are still below industry standard. And when you look at this cost, there's a couple of things that probably should be clarified. The first one is our stop loss costs, and then the next one is our general plan spend, which the next slide will talk about that a little bit. From a general plan spend, we are doing excellent, which is what people typically go to the doctor for and have medical expenses for. Our stop loss claims, as I think you're probably all familiar with, are those claims that are extremely high. And in our case here at the City of Dublin, most, if not all of them, are not preventable. So when you put those two together, you can see this increase. And last year it was that 7.9% increase, but our general plan spend is excellent. And it falls well below United Healthcare and Oswald's book of business. And Oswald is our benefit consultant.
So Jennifer, maybe moving forward, just for our own edification, then perhaps in that previous slide, you could differentiate where that cost increase is coming from, to your point.
Sure, and there's a little bit more information further on that I can share too,
Okay.
that will help
Thank you.
outline that. So this next slide is our claims history versus our projections for per month. So every year we look and see what our grand total cost of our plan is going to be, and we project out what the year is going to look like the year before, so we can budget appropriately. And what you can see here is all of 2019, all of 2020, and just the first 3 months of 2021. So that just went, actually I take that back, it went through April. So for the beginning of 2021, I didn't include this percentage, but we're running at 98% of our projections. So we're doing really well as the year has started. You can see in 2019 and 2020, some of those spikes were due specifically to our high stop loss claims. So the next screen that I wanted to show you, we've looked at this screen as well. This is broken out into quadrants, and the upper left-hand quadrant is the cost of our high claims for the past 7 years, 7 completed years. And through 2020, any high claim that was over $75,000 but less than $150,000, the City of Dublin paid. And then once they hit that $150,000 threshold, they went over into our stop loss claim, meaning we had another insurance, our stop loss insurance, pick up those claims. So you can see since 2014, the number of stop loss claims that we've had over the years. We have a little bit more information on that coming up. And then in the bottom left quadrant, you can see we've stayed relatively consistent with the number of employees that we've had covered year after year. And then on the right bottom quadrant, we see our total plan cost. So you can see that in our budgeting, about 70% of the cost of our plan comes from expected claims, which is what we trend out year after year in budgeting. And then the gray box is 27% of that is our stop loss premiums, what we pay for any claim over that $150,000 threshold. And then the tiny sliver is our admin fees. Yes, Homer.
So if you had to predict in 2021, right, based upon what you know, how many stop loss claims do you think we're looking at in 2021?
Well, 1 second, let me go to the next screen because I have another stat that will give us a little bit of indication. So this is really similar to the screen I just showed, but for 2021, it has some added data. So we've got 4 claims right now that fall into our cost of high claims. If you'll remember when we went through budgeting last year, we increased our stop loss threshold from $150,000 to $175,000, meaning we take on 25% more, or 25 $1,000 more risk for each claim. So currently this year alone, we've had 4 claims that fall somewhere in that $75,000 to $175,000 claim. When I looked at the information just last week, we have 1 claim that is just about to tip over the scales over that $175,000. I'm not sure if the other 3 are going to do that this year, but I know for a fact when we come back and report, whether it would be next month or the month after, we'll at least have 1 claim. And of these other 3 that exist, there could be one other one that does trip the scales that I know of. Does that answer the question, Homer?
Yes, perfect.
All right, thank you. All right, so then this slide is also something that we've looked at in the past. This compares what our stop loss policy has paid versus what we've been reimbursed for. So the way our insurance works is when a claim comes in, we pay the full claim, even if it's over $175,000, and then that stop loss premium that we pay, that insurance, additional insurance, reimburses us for those claims over $175,000. So when you look out over the last several years, one thing that just really speaks to how beneficial stop loss insurance has been is the stop loss policy has paid out 360% more than Dublin has paid, meaning we have saved over $2.1 million in the last 6 years, as opposed to just paying all of our claims without having that stop loss insurance. That was a lot of words. Need any further clarification?
No, no, I understand that, but I am curious. It is driving up our premiums. Do you think it's driving it up faster than it would have driven them up otherwise? In other words, if you were to take the cost of a premium, if we didn't have stop loss and the cost, I mean, obviously we have a reduction in premium because we carry a secondary insurance, but how do you balance out to make sure that one doesn't catch up with the other?
Well, when we look at what has happened over the last couple of years, we have seen our stop loss claims increasing almost exponentially. We had 2 claims last year, one claim in particular that hit the $1 million threshold and one that was slightly under. So again, last year, our stop loss threshold was at $150,000. So we were able to not pay out that $1 million because our stop loss policy covered anything over that $150,000. We are still significantly lower. It is still in our best interest to pay those increasing premiums for our stop loss than to take on the additional risk of not having stop loss insurance and paying for some of those large claims that we get. Now, stop loss, theoretically, and when you look at books of business, it's very customary to have 2 or 3 years where you're seeing several claims, and then 1, 2, 3 years where those claims are reduced. So we pay very close attention to what our plan is actually resulting in. And because we have had several years of high stop loss claims, we made the decision to take on more risk, raising our stop loss threshold from 150 to 175,000. And then because we did that, our stop loss premiums decreased. So it's the way we keep the budget. We're fiscally responsible with the budgeting numbers, and then we can ensure that we are still getting the best bang for our buck with our stop loss premiums and how it's paying out.
Okay. You pay on the stop losses is calculated based on per employee. You pay a premium per employee.
Correct.
Yeah.
In fact, that answers the question you just asked. So you can see over the years, the dollar amount that we have paid per employee per month since 2014. So it's increased significantly, even just in the last year and a half. And part of the reason that we saw a decrease in our 2021 premium is because we increased our liability with stop loss, again, going from that 150 to 175 threshold.
Do you think that some of that cost increase in 2020 was due to COVID?
No, in fact, none of it was. We were very, very fortunate looking at COVID numbers. We didn't even have one claim hit the high claims section, which would have been a threshold over 75. So we were extremely fortunate.
Yeah, because that's a big increase there between 2019 and 2020.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, everything is a year previous. So the
Right.
increase we see from 2019 to 2020 was based off of data from 2018, well before COVID.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think we had several employees that came down with COVID, but I can't recall any of them that actually ended up having any extended hospital stays or placed on ventilators or anything like that. We got
No.
real lucky.
You're correct, Homer. We did not have anybody on ventilators, and we did have several people who went to the hospital, but all of them were released within just a couple of days, thankfully.
Yeah, that's really good news.
And Jennifer, do you have many options in stop loss insurance companies to choose from? In other words, do you compare these rates like on a every other year basis or whatever?
We actually do it every single year when we go out to renewal because this is our highest, fastest increase in our plan cost. So every year we go back out and we look at anywhere between 7 and 10 different vendors. So currently our stop loss coverage is through United Healthcare, but we look at a number of them just to see what could come back. And United Healthcare continues to give us the best cost per employee per month.
Okay. As usual, it sounds like you're covering all the bases every year.
We try really hard. There's obviously a big investment in here. We want to make it the best decision we possibly can. So this slide right here shows by year our claims history versus our stop loss. So what you're seeing here is the very bottom dark blue line is the amount of money that we were reimbursed based off of how much we paid out in the plan. The green line is our net claims. So how much we actually paid out after we were reimbursed from our stop loss. And then the blue line at the top is how much our total plan would have cost if we didn't have stop loss to reimburse us. So you can see the little green box in the upper right-hand corner. So in 2020, we had $6.3 million in total claims. We were reimbursed just shy of $2 million. So our net claims as of the end of the year of 2020 was $4.3 million. And you can see what that is for the last 5 years, since 2016.
Jennifer, I just have sort of a general question. So that 1.9 million in claims, if the city were self-insured, would there be a reduction in that rate due to some type of a negotiation with the healthcare? I mean, is that,
well,
do we
all
know
of
if
those,
it's $1.2 million it would have cost us, or would that have been a negotiated difference? Do we know?
well, all of those are still negotiated. So just because somebody hits stop loss, all of those claims still come through United Healthcare and are adjudicated the exact same way. It's just a matter of how they are paid. So if somebody has something that they've gone to the hospital for, they're getting the exact same kind of discount from the network that they would whether it's reimbursed by stop loss or not.
Right.
So if we didn't pay for the stop loss, we would be absorbing that 1.9 million, but what we would be subtracting would be a significantly lesser number from the stop loss premium we would be saving. We're still in the green by having that stop loss policy.
So what is our total premium in a year? What would the premium paid to result in a $1.9 million savings?
Well, let me give you a rough estimate. Go back. So we paid $384. We calculated off the top of my head because I don't want to trust me doing math in my head. $384 per employee times 12 months. And we have about 350 people on the plan times 12 months is $1.6 million. Oops, I didn't mean to stop sharing that.
So our premium is about what we saved.
We're still saying saving more because we got 1.9 million back, as you can see
Okay.
on this slide. So still several $100,000.
So our sort of net savings was about $300,000, right? Okay. Okay. It might be useful just for our own, again, clarification, because this is not second nature to us. So appreciate your help. Sort of showing us what that is, because I know the premiums went down a little bit, right? Because you took a higher level, but just
Correct.
showing some of that and sort of what the net savings is. So I think that would be just helpful for our, so we don't have to ask you a million questions about that. So that'd be helpful.
Actually, it would be interesting to see it over the history of the years that we've paid the stop loss premium, because I was under the impression that this was net, that we were netting 1.9. I didn't realize you weren't including the cost of the premium. So it would be interesting to see over the years from 2014 out, or whenever we started the premiums, just what the net average would have been, or what the net would have been.
And between this slide and the previous one that shows how much we spent per employee per month on that premium, the information's there. They're just not combined into one slide. So that would be a very easy thing that we could come back and provide.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and the other thing you want to, as you're looking at that graph, I mean, the math that we just did was just based upon 2020. If you look at 2019, you see the light blue line and the green line, how it's got a much greater gap there. The premiums we paid for that were actually less, if I remember right. So when you do the math, you're going to see a greater savings in 2019, and then probably going back through the other years as well, because the premiums were much lower. It's just because of our recent experience that it's gotten closer.
Right.
So
it makes you realize that the insurance company sees that too. And so as these premiums go up, then is when you start to look at whether or not you really do get a net gain or not, because they're catching on that they're paying out more than they intended to.
oh yeah, make no bones about it. The reason our premium went up is because
Yeah.
they've been losing their butts,
Yeah, exactly. So there comes a point where they'll start winning and you'll start losing, because that's how they do it.
Yeah. We've been very fortunate to have stop loss.
But that is where insurance kicks back in, and all the people who want business, even with a plan like ours that has high stop loss claims, there's a number of them out there that have bid on our plan, which means people still want our business. And that's a very good position for us to be in, even with having these very high cost claims. All right, just a couple more updates that I wanted to share with you. This next one is our employee assistance program utilization, which has been something that we have really tried to share since the beginning of the pandemic. We have always been very good about educating our employees about their employee assistant program benefits. We offer 6 visits per year. And you can see starting in 2018, we have information from much further back, but just the last 4 years is what I decided to share today. You could see we had a big utilization in 2019, still a relatively high one in 2020, and people are still using it in 2021, which is what we want to see. One of the things that has changed in the employee assistance world, along with any kind of doctor visits, is there are still a lot of virtual visits that you can have rather than in-person appointments with a mental health provider. And then we just completed our biometrics, which you'll probably all remember having taken part in. That happened at the end of April and early May. So we're still awaiting our final results, so that when we do come back and share this again, we'll be able to share what our biometric results were for the 2021 year. And that is all that I had to share in the benefits update.
Great. Other questions for Jennifer? So Jennifer, I remember last year when we had this conversation, we talked a bit about rising cost. And that was the recommendation of this group that went on to, as we began to have a budget conversation, which we're going to start to have those conversations again soon. Are we going to have another conversation about costs, or is the recommendation from staff to leave things as they are, or sort of what is your update on that?
Well, we hadn't necessarily prepared a recommendation for tonight, but we can certainly do that because I don't know that I'm prepared to actually give you a recommendation right now without a little bit further analysis of our plan. A lot of times we don't, until we go through the renewal process with United Healthcare, we don't have a good snapshot of what this year fully looks like. So we don't have all the data that we would want to have to make that recommendation to you. But like you said, as we start getting ready for budget process, we will, and then we can make that recommendation.
Okay, great. So you'll bring this back around during that process again. I think we had one update last year. This year we'll have 2 updates from this. Okay, great. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, Jane.
Yeah, I have a question. Do you track to see if people actually utilize their HSA to pay their deductibles? Do you think most employees really understand that it is practically a free cost of insurance because of the fact that they pay no premium? You put in quite a bit of money into the HSA, and then that would help with the deductible that is as high as it is in order. Do you notice, or can you tell if people actually are using their HSA to help with their deductibles? Is there a
Well,
way?
as you can see, Homer and I are both smiling because you asked the $1 million question about people understanding the benefit. I will let Homer answer this question too, but my gut reaction is people very much understand the value of receiving that money in their HSA. They know what that is and they view that as their income. Whether they're using it for their medical expenses or not, that's the question, because there's tax benefits to doing it a number of different ways, whether you're saving it for post-retirement or you're utilizing it now for the tax benefits. What we can see is how much money people actually have in their HSA accounts. Again, I don't have that exact statistic in front of me, but we know that the vast majority of our employees have at least 1 year's out-of-pocket maximum cost, meaning they could go through an entire year, use the money that we've given them in their HSA, and truly have 0 expenses for their health insurance. Considering how much people are vested in how much money they get into their HSA, yes, they're very much aware of it. If they use it to benefit themselves from the best possible tax advantage, I don't know if I could answer that one, but I think people are aware of the value. Homer, did you want to add anything to that since you were smiling with me?
No, I'm just going to say I think people very much understand the value of what they're getting. And there are those that very actively use theirs to pay their current medical bills. And you can tell if you do some analysis, and I mean, the problem is you don't know who specifically has medical bills, but you can tell just by the general knowledge that there are some that you do spend a lot of money out of pocket and they don't touch their HSA because they're trying to build it up because they get to keep that, post-retirement, and that's going to help them out later on. So they're kind of, securing their future, medical, costs as well with it. So there's some pretty savvy people out there. They know what they're doing.
Okay.
In terms
I think
of,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Homer.
I'm done.
I think another indicator of that is the amount of people who participate in our our wellness program, Healthy by Choice. So we obviously have a premium at Dublin that can be waived by participation in our Healthy by Choice program. We have over 95% participation in that because there's just some very heavy benefits that go along with that, being the HSA contribution. So I think people value it because they also participate in that program as well. If they didn't value it, they probably wouldn't be participating, not with as strong in numbers.
The 5% that don't participate, do you think it's because they're seasonal? They don't. I'm curious as to why anybody would want to pay a premium and don't participate. Do you?
And you know what? That number is actually way too low. I can think of 2 employees who actually don't participate and just choose to pay the premium. And we've talked to employees because we would prefer them to get the benefits of an HSA. And there are some people who just feel very strongly about keeping their information private, not wanting to go through biometrics. And again, it's 2. So I would say our number is probably 99 instead of 95.
That's fine. Yeah. I was just curious as to whether, because the whole health insurance environment, even as well as you explain, it can be complex and complicated. And I just wondered if there was a way for you to track to make sure people actually utilize the benefits that they had. But you're right. Saving it sometimes is the best way, and writing off the medical expenses is tax advantageous.
Well, and one of the other things that we do as part of the Healthy by Choice program is employees are required to go through 2 educational courses every year, and that's on city time. And I don't believe we did for 2020, but in years past, we have just offered a basic HSA 101 to continue educating people. They can walk into HR at any point, and we will spend as much time with somebody as they need to. When you see the light bulb go on of what that benefit really is, we love to help people understand that. But we do offer those education classes essentially on demand, so people can ask anytime that they need. And our credit union that helps administer that also is very good at helping people understand that as well.
Right. The one thing that I would bring up is because it happened with me because of my age is mine is more of an HRA. And one of the things that I think, and Mike Keenan brought this up too when he was on council, there probably aren't very many employees who are under that category, but the ones that there are advantages there that I would hope that they would be able to come to human resources and be able to work out. Like you don't have to pay for Medicare when we have this kind of a plan. Like I don't pay for Medicare premium. I don't need to. I can postpone that. I didn't know that for the first couple of years, so I was double paying. I mean, I was paying a Medicare premium when I didn't really need to. So those kinds of things that's one thing that I guess I would request that we make sure that we have the advice available for those who are at the retirement age that might still be working at the city and how to maneuver that kind of scenario.
We do work really hard to educate people on that because everybody's individual situation is so vastly different. A lot of times we do just refer them to a specialist that can help them. But over the years, almost every single year, we've brought in somebody who's very well versed in Social Security, OPERS, HRA, and HSA, and just provided that as a benefit for people to hear, ask questions. A lot of people come to us with information, but they don't give us the full picture. So we can only answer what we know. But
Right.
we work really hard, especially when somebody becomes Medicare eligible, to sit down and say, based off the City of Dublin plan, here's what we know. Here's the questions you need to go back and further ask Social Security and OPERS and.
Right.
So I think people do a pretty good job of that. And we do everything that we can to help them because it is very confusing for us, probably
Yes.
even more confusing for them.
Yeah, and I think bringing someone in is good because I found that for myself when I went back and asked Social Security or OPERS, they really don't want to give you any advice. They see that the company that you work for should give you advice, and then the government does, but nobody wants to give you the advice. You almost have to go to a planning professional who works with people all the time, and that would be a great benefit. As you
And
said,
a tax specialist too. That's why no one wants to give advice, is because there's some pretty significant tax ramifications. And if one person gets it wrong, that can really throw off future benefits. So
right. Even names of resources, but I get it. I know how hard that is. Put you in a bad position sometimes. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks very much. So that is what we have on our agenda. If it's the will of the group, we also had an update from the CPI teams as a bit of a follow-up. And I thought maybe because we have sufficient time this evening, that maybe we could get a bit of an update on that. 2 things. Thank you, Homer, and team for your work on the DEI training. So that has been approved by council at the last meeting. And that'll begin to roll out for boards and commissions and for council. Do we have an estimated timeline on that?
For the DEI training and the ethics training, yeah, Robin Myers is, she was on vacation at the end of last week. She is going to be engaging with Stephen Francis to get the trainings lined up, the live trainings. And then other than that, she needs to get everybody set up in Cornerstone, get their names and get their notifications out to them. So it should be in the next few weeks. We should start seeing something, pop up.
Great.
Yeah.
And we'll put together communication to the boards and commission with the background and this type of stuff. So I'm looking for a head nod there. So, okay.
And also, Kathy, I think there's actually a staff report from CPI, an update from them as well tonight.
Right, there is. And so then I just want to ask that quick question before we moved on to have Lindsay do that. So good, we're moving ahead with that. And we thank you guys very much for your work on that. This group talked about this for the last couple of meetings, so thank you. So Lindsay, you want to give us a quick update on the memo? Thank you.
Sure. Can you all hear me okay? Good. Good afternoon, members of the committee. So good to see you again. I hope you're not sick of us yet, but we actually do have a staff update that Homer had asked us to provide for you guys, and it does include some updates on what we have spoken to you about at the last committee meeting, as well as just our staff updates in general. So I am here with Bruce Edwards again today, and we are grateful to have this opportunity to tell you a little bit about our Communications and Public Information Division, some of the tools, methods, and measurements that we use in some of our ongoing and upcoming priorities. So Bruce, if you would like to bring up our quick presentation, we always start with a quote from Informing Communities, Sustaining Democracy in a Digital Age, which is what we are all living in. And it says, information is as vital to the health functioning of communities as clean air, safe streets, good schools, and public health. So you can see we take our jobs pretty seriously. We try not to take ourselves that seriously, but our jobs and our roles in this local democracy very seriously. So what does that role look like in 2021? And I know that we recently reported to you in a council work session. So some of this will be a little bit repetitive, and I will get through it quickly. But just some of our core functions in a nutshell, if you will, what CPI does for the city and for the community. We do PR, marketing and branding, digital and social media initiatives, neighborhood communications pretty robustly, graphic design and creative services, video production, media relations. Emergency preparedness is a big part of what we do every day, especially top of mind during the Memorial Tournament, which is happening now. So we always prepare for the worst and work closely with our partners at Washington Township and within the police department to make sure that we're always prepared, especially during times of heightened awareness like this. Crisis communications, internal communications, and international outreach. So if you want to meet the team really quickly, as you are aware, our Director of Communications and Public Information role is vacant. A nationwide recruitment effort is being conducted right now, and we are hopeful that we will get an update on that in a timely fashion. In the meantime, I am a Public Affairs Officer and am filling that role with going to the council meetings and serving as a team leader, also continuing to support our development and public service divisions, as well as other departments and divisions in the city. We pretty much function as a PR agency for the city, and everyone is assigned a different role. So every department in the city has a communications liaison, much as you just saw Jennifer in human resources. They have a human resource business partner model. So everyone in the city knows who their representative is, and it's similar with our division as well. Rebecca Myers is primarily our police PIO, so she works very strongly with them, as I mentioned, with developing messages, crisis communications, response, preparedness, and some of the ongoing crime prevention mentioning that we do with them, also their recruitment efforts and things like that. She does have other roles, but that's her primary function. Shirley Blaine is our Parks and Rec PIO. Again, she has other functions as well, but that's her main one, and they keep her busy always, and especially with everything that we're doing now with how we are going to do events differently, to making changes to how we're doing things at the rec center, not opening pools, all that stuff. And so that's been something that the rec services team has been very busy with, and Shirley has been very busy with the messaging for them. And then of course, Bruce Edwards, our digital and brand manager, as we'll get to a little bit later here, he does much more than administer our one website. So his job has really evolved a lot over his 20 years here. And then Jeremy Gerstacker is our digital and graphics designer. And in your earlier conversation, I know you were talking about opportunities within the city, and he transferred to us from the events, the community events division. So another person within the city who found a new opportunity in a different capacity. And then we do have a multimedia specialist position, which is also vacant. Unfortunately, that job has been open pretty much since around the time of the pandemic, and then with the hiring freeze, and then the vacancy of our director, we just have not been able to fill that job yet, but that will be coming up shortly. So we talked a little bit about this in the May 11th work session to council, but just the expanding digital footprint, a look at everything we have going on there. Obviously our main website, dublinohiousa.gov, and then support websites beyond that. And we use those for a variety of reasons, for marketing purposes and just to serve the communities, such as the veterans community, and the DubNet is obviously our intranet. So everything has a specific purpose. But yes, that has just kind of exploded. We obviously also work with traditional media. So there are a couple of the local and regional media avenues that we work with there. And of course, social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Nextdoor, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We use photos. We have a lot of public meetings, including the State of the City, which our division produces, hopefully in person next year. We shall see. We have HOA meetings, which we'll talk about in a little bit, as well as special meetings that we put on as needed. And we've talked about the Go Dublin app. We use video. We put out at least weekly e-news through MailChimp, and then offer Alexa news briefs weekly as well. So that brings us to video, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, how important this is becoming, just because of the avenues that we use through social media place so much more important on video messaging. It just bumps it up in the algorithm, so it will be seen by people more and more. And also that's just where the appetite for the customer is, and that is across communication platforms, local governments, businesses, all of that. So we've really made it a priority to do video messaging regularly. As you can see, there were 86.6 thousand minutes watched from January to May of this year. So that's a lot of time. And it wasn't just me, there were other people watching as well. And we put our videos on YouTube. That's sort of the main platform that we use for videos. And you see that there are over 22,000 views there. But obviously, we also share on our social media networks as well. And the biggest consumption is actually on Facebook. And then also they're followed by Instagram. So again, we will produce a video and then put it out through various channels. And a little bit more about social media, because I think you guys are a little interested in it, I hope. But so we basically want to use the right tool, the right method at the right time. And we don't just throw everything onto every platform. We're very strategic about how we use the social media tools and when, and we want to make sure that we're reaching the right people. So we have unprecedented engagement on all of our channels. And it's really about building community and engagement. As we've mentioned to you before, that's where the audience already is. And so we want to meet them there. You can see the social media growth from 2013 to the present. All of the platforms just continue to grow. And we watch this. Bruce looks at the analytics weekly, if not more, just to make sure that we're still getting, the bang for our buck as we continue to have our staff invest time and resources. We want to make sure that it's useful and that we're not just putting it out there and no one's paying any attention. And our metrics and our analytics show that's the case for now. Here's a quick look at the numbers of how many followers we have on everything. And I really want to point out Nextdoor, because last week we surpassed 20,000 households on Nextdoor. And so that is 65% of total households in Dublin, which we think is an amazing number. And so that's really our favorite tool for when we want to get out important information. We don't use it for here's a pretty picture or, check out this, great video that we made. We try to use that very strategically. The audience there is residents. We know that everyone is verified as a resident when they are on Nextdoor, and so that's really important to us because that's not something we have available to us through Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. The content, again, alerts and info pertaining to specific neighborhoods. I've told you before how you can target down to specific neighborhoods, which is, again, a very useful tool. And it is a free private network for neighborhoods. And again, we can target neighborhoods and areas. So Facebook, our audience is a little broader. Dublin residents, the Columbus region we can target national audiences. And that is one good thing. You can target audiences on Facebook, but you have to pay for it. So unlike Nextdoor, where you can just go in and target a specific neighborhood, through Facebook, you can target people through age group, other demographics, but then it's sort of like a pay-to-play situation where you can spend, $10 or $5 or $10 to reach specific people with targeted messaging. So we do that sometimes when it's a message that we want to make sure kind of pops up in the feed. Otherwise, you can put something onto Facebook and people will never see it. We do put the numbers there for comparison's sake. So on Facebook and Twitter, you can see the numbers and how we compare to other cities. On Facebook, we have 22,700, which compares to, Westerville there with 21 and Columbus, which is a much larger city that has 22. And then similar story on Twitter. So Twitter is our target audiences for that. Interestingly enough, the traditional media really follow Twitter a lot. So we will put out, like if we have news releases, if we have traffic alerts, we can put that on Twitter, and reporters and news producers, they see that, and then they can retweet that or use that and take our news releases and get the information that way. We do have residents, corporate citizens, and the broader public who are on Twitter as well. So we use that more for news headlines and somewhat urgent alerts. Dublin police have a presence on Twitter as well. So if you ever want to know about kind of instantaneous emergency traffic information, Dublin police is a really good thing to follow on Twitter as well. And you can see the numbers there. We have almost 17,000 people following us on Twitter now. Next up is LinkedIn. Of course, our audience there is businesses. So local, regional, and national corporate workforces and residents. We use it a lot to promote some of the city council economic development agreements, things like that, things that really celebrate and hold up the business community. We also use it for recruiting when we're working with HR to look for new talent for the city. So it's a little bit different platform. We don't put, things about cicadas or things like that are a little bit more resident focused. It's a little bit more about businesses and things like that. Instagram is one of our favorite platforms right now because it's mostly just about sharing pretty pictures. So we say beautiful places, interesting people, and amazing things. And so we showcase residents. We showcase this to residents and to visitors. The comparable cities there, you can see Columbus at 6,000. Westerville at 5, New Albany at 5, and we are now at 15,500. So we really try to make sure that we're putting things on there that people love to see, and we get people to tag us and share their stuff with us. We do a feature on Mondays called Monday Mentions, which has really been well received. People love to tag us and then see their stuff in our feed too. So that's been a lot of fun. And then for social sentiment, I'm going to ask Bruce if he can jump in here for us.
Sure, thanks, Lindsay. So Zen City, I know we've talked about this, but Zen City collects and analyzes data and it pulls from hundreds of external and internal channels. And Zen City provides actionable insights and tailored reports so we can easily measure and improve resident satisfaction. So Zen City allows us to go outside of our digital echo chamber and hear the larger conversation in the community. Executive training session signups with Zen City's Ariel Fisher are now available, and we've sent that information to Jenny, so she will be sure to get that link to you guys, so every council member can sign up for that training. I'll talk about e-news for a second. Now, email isn't the most exciting or innovative tool, but it has been a very effective means of communication. So we have over 10,000 subscribers currently for our e-news. And we send out Dublin News Now every Thursday afternoon. Hopefully everybody receives that and is hanging and waiting by 3:30, 4 o'clock to open that up. But we provide information that people need to know about the weekend ahead or the week ahead. And popular features include Dig This, where we highlight construction updates, and we do quick surveys. We ask subscribers their opinions on anything from COVID to cicadas, and people like to share that information. So when you see those open rates and click rates, they look real low percentage-wise, but our industry average for government is 30%, and we have a 37% open rate. And then a click rate, the industry average is 4%, and we have a 15% click rate. So that means the information that we're including in e-news, people really want to click on it and engage with it. And what's great about all the tools that Lindsay talked about and the tools that I'm talking about, we can measure everything. And at any point, if we decide, wow, things aren't looking good, maybe we should tweak a little bit, we can do that. So we can definitely edit on the fly. So websites, speaking of another tried and true communication tool, our websites have been a staple of CPI for years, and our goal is to always attract and engage audiences and by delivering relevant and accurate and timely content. So this chart shows a snapshot from 2013 until May of this year of page use for the city site. So you can see there's been a small drop off in usage. And part of that is attributed to the addition of our Go Dublin app and the increased number of our social channels. But for the most, usage has remained consistent. And that's because we look at our website as our communication hub with lines feeding back to it from our social channels. So you can put all sorts of great content on the website and then have a social post about it, come back and direct people if they really want to dig in. So we currently host 8 sites, and I'm only showing 5 of these because these are our most used sites. But websites really allow that repository for users to have that deeper dive into the information they're seeking. So they're still working and they're still going forward. So how do we use all this stuff in unison? So if we talk about engagement by the numbers, so I have 2 real quick examples to show how we leverage our tools for residents or for business partners. So the first door survey that we did, we really wanted to hit it home with residents. We didn't put it on Facebook. We put it on e-news because we knew the majority of subscribers are in Dublin. We also posted it on Nextdoor. So you can see the numbers there, and they resulted in over 4,000 completed surveys. So we thought that was a success. And then another example here is there was a US 33 161 Post Road interchange virtual meeting. So this we knew had a bigger impact on our audience. So we knew it was more than just residents. It was people that were coming through our community, or people working in the community. So we put it out on all of our channels, and you can see the engagement we received on those. But at the end of the day, the so what of that is it resulted in 105 people signed in to watch a public meeting live. And then 34 people asked questions during the meeting. So we're like, that's pretty cool stuff that people are engaged with us. Neighborhood communications, I'll go ahead and turn this back over to Lindsay.
Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate that. So earlier I was talking about our robust neighborhood communications. So we have the list of neighborhood leaders, and we work with them a lot. So we have the spring and fall neighborhood leader meetings, which I know you have all attended, and they are great. They're always a great opportunity for us to share some things that are coming up from the city perspective, and then to hear their questions. So I know for us, the Q&A is always the most informative part of those meetings, because we hear what the residents are really interested in, and then we use that to cater our agenda for the next meeting. We have 88 active associations, 150 total contacts, and our office sends weekly direct emails to that group. So that's a really nice distribution list that we have, and a way to get important information into the right hands. And then we ask those neighborhood leaders to share it with their neighborhoods. So that's definitely a great way for us to have a good amplified message through email. And we do have a public meeting checklist that we developed a few years ago that we just wanted to make you guys aware of. It's very useful for us, and it makes sure that we have a process in place for public involvement meetings. So everything gets on the city's website and the web calendar. I should say first we check with Jenny Delgado to make sure that it works out for City Council. And once she says yes and gives it her blessing, we put it on the city website and the web calendar, and then we share it on Facebook, Twitter, and Nextdoor, put it in our e-news. We generally will send letters to residents who are either near the project or the issue or things like that, people who have expressed an interest in it before. A good example of that is the pool that just opened, the North Pool that opened on Friday. We had a very robust list of citizens who had been involved in the public engagement process for that. So we had a good list of residents that we actually mailed letters to throughout various steps of the public engagement process for that. And then when the pool opened, sent them the letters as well as the people who were nearby the pool. We also will send emails to the area HOAs when we have a meeting, emails to past public meeting participants, like I just mentioned. We'll put up electronic signage boards for most larger meetings, and sandwich boards at places like the pool or along paths. So that's just the way that we get out the word about public meetings, to make sure everyone knows about that. And now we're going to talk about platforms for future participation. So a couple of things that are coming up, or that we are using, or are emerging. We have talked about Go Dublin. As you know, that is the city app. It launched in March of 2019 and is accessible through both the city's website and as an app for smart devices. We've found it to be extremely useful, and it has improved efficiency, specifically with service requests and providing information to the public. As we reported to this committee in your May meeting, we have plans to expand Go Dublin in terms of making things easier for two-way communication and to connect with us. It has many functions that we have not used yet, but we'll be adding to our repertoire as we continue our phased rollout of that app. Go Dublin can be used as an anonymous tool, or through creating an account. And from the inception of Go Dublin in March 2019 through May of this year, we received a total of 11,176 requests via the Go Dublin platform, and 13% of those were submitted anonymously. So we provided that update to you in your packet, since we had talked about that last month. And other terms of future participation is Connected Dublin. And Connected Dublin is really the umbrella term that we are using for everything that leverages existing and emerging technology to improve lives, drives, and experiences for Dublin residents, corporate citizens, and visitors. And so the City of Dublin's connected projects include transportation and mobility, fiber to home pilots, the Beta District, and more. And these projects support City Council's visionary goal to become the most connected community in the US. So we in CPI are very cognizant of that goal, and we have it at the forefront of our communications and engagement strategies now and into the future. And you can see a couple of things there that are on the screen. And those are some things that either you'll be hearing more about soon, or look for more information on those. Right now, if you go to our website at dublinohiousa.gov/connecteddublin, you'll find a video that we produced when COSI was having their Smart Science Festival, and we produced that, and it kind of gives a nice overview of Connected Dublin and what that is, and what we'll be doing going forward. And that does include Go Dublin and how we're looking to use that technology and expand it. And another great example is the Dublin Connector. So our partnership with Share Mobility that provides microtransit services, we recently rolled out a new ride booking app, and we have integrated that with Go Dublin. So now if you go to the front of Go Dublin, you see the Dublin Connector, and you can click on that, and within one click, it takes you right to the ride booking app, which is very user-friendly. So that is just another way that we have used that. And then the third emerging technology we wanted to share with you is Ike. And Bruce has been pioneering that effort, researching the technology and benchmarking its use in other communities. So I invite him back to tell you more about what he has learned.
Thanks, Lindsay. The Ike, or interactive kiosk experience, excuse me, is more than just wayfinding. It's a city communication tool for the digital age. It provides real-time experiences for users to find destinations. It allows us to broadcast critical information and updates, and it allows residents to give real-time feedback on city initiatives. So we're currently working with planning in Orange Barrel, and we were excited about the opportunity to present to council what Ike could do for Dublin, because it's almost like dropping a giant iPhone down into a community, but it is not as obtrusive as that sounds. But it is super useful. It ties into all the businesses that are there. If somebody's new to Dublin, they can tie into it. It also syncs up with your mobile device. So if you're doing something, you're clicking Ike and you're like, I want to take that with me, scan a QR code, take it with me. So really excited about the opportunity that Ike will help with continuing to, when we had kiosks, when I first started, we were stapling things downtown in front of Dublin Village Tavern. And this kind of takes it a few more steps ahead. So really excited about that opportunity.
So can you, this is a kiosk that's going to be, that would be in places. Is there a place online that you can see how this works?
Yes, absolutely. They have a great website. Jane, I will send it to Jenny, and then she can send all you guys, everyone, a link to that, because, and there's some in downtown Columbus, and they're phenomenal. I'm not one that's sold on gimmicky technology. I really think this would be a useful tool for us.
Okay. And the plan is to show this to council. I mean, these haven't been purchased, ready to go. Yeah. Where, and are you knowing where you might put these? Are you even, but that's part of that.
Yes, we want to put one as a test pilot over on the east side of the river, over near the construction of the park. So when people, before they cross the bridge, they'd be able to see that and then say, hey, what's on the other side? And it would come up with information. I mean, the best thing about this is I think about all of the signage over the years that we've done in historic Dublin and over in Bridge Park. And it's like, the stuff is outdated as soon as we print it. So this allows for stuff to be updated on the fly. And I know Scott Drain would totally be down with this because of the opportunity to promote businesses downtown as well.
Do you think there'd be an opportunity? I think about how we've discussed through so many different departments. The Historic Society, for one, and through the Historic Dublin Task Force, talked about how to make the historic district more relevant, more knowledgeable. So for instance, would this have an icon that says historic properties? You could go to that, you could do QR, and you could have an address, and then the history of that would come up. Would this be able to incorporate even a variety of things besides businesses? And
yes, absolutely. We could tell the story of historic Dublin through video, and I mean, there's audio capabilities as well. This is again, I am totally sold on this because of the opportunity that we have. When it's resting, it can have a video going of something. And then in the evening, if we don't want the light too bright, it knows it's content aware, so it can know if it's nighttime, it's not going to be as loud, it's not going to be as bright. But we can tell any story we want to tell. And I think about like when Lindsay was talking about the video content. What better way to display video content than almost on a movie theater like this? So yes, we can absolutely tell the story.
Is it interactive? I mean, a lot
Yes.
of what I'm seeing here is informational, but as Kathy and I think many of the council members have said, we're looking for interactivity so that we can gain information back from the community. I think that's the piece that I'm looking for too. How interactive is it?
This is the definition of interactive, because if you want to have it so there's imagine like when a screensaver, when a computer goes to sleep or a phone goes to sleep, it can rest on a page that says, we want your feedback. And with 2 clicks, you can get survey data. When you see the video, you're going to be like, yes, I want this in Historic Dublin.
Okay. All right. I'm going to look that up.
Awesome. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Thanks, Bruce. And I think we're going to kind of wrap it up with some next steps. So I know that Bruce had already mentioned the Zen City executive trainings. We provided the update to council on May 5th and have worked with our rep for Zen City to set up these executive trainings. So you will all have the opportunity to schedule those this month. It's June now. So yeah, this month you can set those up, and we think that you'll find it very useful and informative. So hopefully you guys will get a chance to set those up soon. And then we had talked about the council member interviews. So I updated the questions based on this committee's feedback from last month and provided a revised draft of interview questions in your packet. So if the committee wants to take a look at those questions and either sign off on them or provide some suggestions, we will, once we have those questions fine-tuned, then we will work with the clerk of council to set up those one-on-one interviews with each council member. And then after all of those interviews, CPI staff would report back kind of some of the findings, and then work on that public engagement plan. We also had talked about enhanced survey packaging and promotion with the Connect With Us that we could implement through the Go Dublin tool. And then also just what's next in terms of community engagement. Dublin 2035 is very much top of mind right now for our office. We are working with the planning division and Planning Next to develop our community engagement plan for the Dublin 2035 effort, which will include meetings and a survey and ample opportunities for interactive communication regarding that effort. And so really, we just wanted to convey that our tools are your tools. And so you should feel empowered to treat them as such by engaging with our platforms. That's why we told you more than you probably really wanted to know. But so just so you guys know that you can use our engagement tools as your own, because they really are about engaging with your residents. And you can do that as much or as little as you want. We provided the social media policy at your request in your packet, which really includes several guidelines for interacting on social media platforms. Really just treat digital platforms as you would any other public engagement. Know that everything is public record. And then treat those opportunities as you would, a town hall meeting or something like that. But we hope that we are on the platforms that you are engaged in as well. So if you love Facebook, but have never been on Twitter, that's fine. Just get on Facebook and engage with the residents there. Or if you don't have a Facebook account, but you're really comfortable on Nextdoor, then get on there and comment on all of the threads that we have. And we really encourage you to share our stuff that we put on the city platforms, because if you guys share it, that amplifies our reach and gets out the city's message more than you probably realize. The biggest thing that you guys could do for us in terms of amplifying our communications would be to share the messages that we're putting out there on the platforms that we hope that you are engaged on as well. And then we would know that it's hitting our target audience. So I hope that that was useful information for you guys, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
I have one. I'm kind of curious on the Go Dublin app, whether or not we Zen City it. I mean, can you tell on the Go Dublin what the trending, trending requests are? Or what I know a lot of it is maintenance or something's, there's a tree down or something, but do we Zen City that?
Yes.
Go ahead, Bruce.
The API through Rock Solid allows us to connect Go Dublin with Zen City. So we can absolutely see what is the most popular request. I'm going to guess it's chipper, just throwing it out there. But you can measure that at different time periods. So that's what's awesome about it.
So as I'm thrilled that you're offering, Lindsay, the opportunity for us to participate. So maybe it's me. There's a lot here and a lot I don't know about how to use, or the best way to do it without stepping on or saying the correct things, right? I'm interested in two things. One, learning more about how to interactively use it as a council member, all of the opportunities you have with communication. Secondly, I'm looking for ways to connect with my own ward, but outside of that as well. And third, the HOA meetings, I find it wonderful that you have these contacts, but it's not a contact, but those contacts, it would be nice for me to get the weekly update, what you send out, so I know what you're telling the neighborhood, so I can reinforce that if there's conversations. I feel like right now, and I'm not sure how we bridge this gap, I hear things that you never hear, and you tell things that I never hear. And somehow we need to be able to make sure that we're talking to each other. So I think I feel like council right now is a satellite to all of this. And maybe that's just the way it's always been done in any government, because technology is always running faster than the rest of us. So one, for me, I have a lot to learn. I would love to sit down and have those training opportunities. And once these interviews happen, I think that will help us a lot more. But that's just
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think that'll be kind of part of that next generation communication plan that you guys have been looking for. And thank you for that suggestion. We absolutely should include council on our HOA weekly email. I will make that recommendation to Karina, who sends out that email. So look for that. She sends them out on Fridays. We will definitely get you added to that. I hope that you see, I send you guys the traffic updates. So yes, on Fridays, I send those, and I think I started copying council a couple of years ago on that. So we should make sure that we do that on everything that we send out.
Appreciate that.
Christina, do you have any questions? Okay, I had a couple. One of those is, as you probably aware, I have a bit of a marketing and a sales background in my previous life. And one of the numbers that we monitored a lot and spent time looking at was reach. And what I see is signups, but I'm not sure I understand reach. So do we know that, for instance, I mean, how are you measuring what percentage of a neighborhood is engaging with you? Not simply sign up numbers, but pick a neighborhood. How do we manage that? And what are you guys, what kind of targets and goals do you have to get reach? Because the goal ought to be that I have a two-way communication with every member household in the city. So Lindsay, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm sure you guys think a lot about this. I think it would be interesting for us to understand your statistics that you guys track here.
We do, and I will talk for about 4 seconds and then I'll put Bruce on the spot because this is absolutely what he does weekly. He does weekly reporting and all of that. So short answer to your question is all of the tools we use are measurable, and each tool has its own available metrics, including reach, impressions, likes, reactions, things like that. And we look at all of them. Some of them are more important than others. Some of them are known sort of as vanity statistics, but we really do look at reach. And that's why I specifically mentioned reach when I said, if you guys could share our content on your platforms, that to me is the single biggest metric that we can track, because every share includes so many more impressions. It just amplifies exponentially. So for us, we look at those numbers. Yes.
Yeah, and Lizzie, and I'm not looking at that, and I see growth and reach. I'm looking at, do we know what percentage of residents we've actually touched? Do you know what I mean? That's a different number. It's not
Sure.
a outbound, it's a caught number. So for interestingly, in what I would call a commercial business, what you would say is the market I'm trying to reach are, let's say I'm selling tennis shoes, would be an audience of this size, that's this makeup. For us, our market is 50,000 individuals. We know who they are. We know where they live. You know what I mean? They live in the city of Dublin. So how do we measure what kind of impact or reach we're making to our 50,000 residents? What percentage of those? That number to me is a more interesting number than I had 43 impressions, I had too many repeats. Instead, we have 50,000 people. We know half of them got this message. Is there a way to do that? That is like sort of a question I'm asking, Bruce.
Yes, there is a way, because you're right. When we're talking about those fancy numbers, like in the slides that we talked about, oh, we have so many followers on Facebook compared to other cities, doesn't really mean anything. What means something is the engagement. We could have 10 followers, but if those 10 followers share our message, that might get out faster than just sending it to the masses. So yes, we need to go in and look at each tool. So for example, Nextdoor, a great example, Lindsay talked about how we know exactly that these are Dublin residents. So we can go in, we can see how many impressions we had. Then we can go one step. So that reporting mechanism right now that we reported on was just that impression. So you're right, we need to take that next step and see percentages. And when I get into Nextdoor next time, I can go in and pull that data. So I see where you're going with that, and I think that's the way we need to think about measurement sometimes, instead of just saying, boom, we had 4,000 people look at this. Great. Who are those 4,000 people? How do they relate to, how important are they to getting our message out? So I will go back in and dig some numbers out for you.
I mean, that's just the way I think about it. And
No,
I think
you're
this
right.
is Jane and I have been trying to say for a while is we're not sure we've reached all the folks who may have a genuine interest in, rather that's a development change, a pool opening or whatever. And I'm very appreciative, and I know how much hard work it is to get the numbers and the impressions you guys are doing. That is amazing. That means you have content somebody wants to care about and you do it relevant, which are the two hardest things. But the next step then becomes reach. And I think that's one of the reasons I find the app such an interesting thing, is because you have sign up and you have connection. So my second request, I guess, would be then, what is our end goal for our app? I mean, I like everybody else on this call use a lot of different apps. And what I see the Go Dublin is it's a very first step app in my mind, because I'll just use United Airlines as an example. I can track trips I'm interested in, things I care about, areas of interest that I'm in, things I want to sign up on. All of those things are now available to me. Yes, I have to tell you who I am. But as you said, most people have. You shared those numbers. Some people never will. That's their choice. Fine. But I think I would like to understand, maybe we could bring this to a later meeting. What is our end goal with that app? Because at the end of the day, it's apps more than websites. And I think that's part of the reason you're seeing that decrease, as we know, Bruce, over time, is people are looking for more of a one-stop shop than make me wander through a website and find. I rather fetch than find. And in the apps now, there's just such wonderful, and we could all share examples of those apps that we like so much. But I would like to have that discussion at some point, and I think you've heard the interest from this group on that about what it can do. And so maybe a bit of an update on that. And the reason I think it's important for us is it's back to the conversations we keep having. If the app is really going to be our central communication, then how we talk about engagement would be important in those. Those were just sort of two things. How do we measure reach and touch? And then how do we think about that app as a useful tool? And then finally, I had a couple pieces of feedback in some of those questions. I'll send those to you offline. Generally, they were more about, can we share some examples so people, so for instance, instead of just naming it, show them, you mentioned a couple of things that the City of Columbus does, which I think they do a very nice job with allowing a platform for council as a whole to share, which is what I'm most interested in. And to show some examples of what it looks like, I think is useful. Instead of asking the council members themselves to go out and do that, show a few examples, and I'm happy to share some of those. But I had some feedback, and I'll be happy to share that. But thank you very much for working with us on this, because I know it's a little bit of a all over the map kind of a thing until we arrive at it, and it's a world that's changing dramatically. But other comments or questions? Great. I don't know. Do we have any other business that we need to do on this beautiful evening? How's that for a loaded question? Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Homer. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Bruce, very much. I know it's a lot of work to prepare for these discussions as well as have them with us, and we appreciate that.
Would you mind making sure that that your presentations are placed on board packs so we can go back and take a look and everything? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's real helpful for us to have them ahead of time. So we didn't in this
Afterwards, right. So sometimes you miss things. That'd be great.
That helps us. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Okay, thank you all. Have a wonderful evening then.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.